Chapter 14 is the last chapter we are going to cover for this semester, Sociology 101. It is on the institution of religion. Again, one of my favorite things to learn about. I'm generally interested to learn about different societies and the different world religions we have. It was one of my favorite classes that I took as an undergraduate in college. So I strongly encourage, if you ever get an opportunity to take a world religions class, that you do this. So let's first step back and talk about what religion is. It is a unified system of beliefs and practices related to sacred things. So, why does religion exist? It exists because humans have a need to seek answers to questions about our existence. Is there a higher life force? Why does life happen the way it does? Is there an afterlife? Answers to these questions are beyond science. So that's where religion erupts. It creates, again, a unified system of beliefs, practices, and addresses sacred things. So it's important to also note that sociology doesn't endorse or try to explain religion, but it looks at how religion shapes societies, the consequences of adhering to a certain religion, the function of religion, and looks at the inequalities that religion creates. So I mentioned the words sacred already. What does it mean to be sacred? So sacred are just things that are regarded as special. They are sacred by the meanings that we attach to them. So I put some pictures up here of some things that would be documented as being sacred. On the right-hand side, you see there's a crucifix, a cross there. There is a Bible. They are just things, but the meanings that we attach to them is what makes them sacred. But some other things that could be considered sacred would be awards, historical artifacts. You might have some things in your life that are very special to you. You regard them as special. You have meanings that you attach to them, and therefore they are sacred. Some other things that would be considered sacred are money, and like these things. I mean, what is this? Well, it's glass and plastic and metal all kind of hunked together, and it does things. Um, this hunk of metal and plastic was very expensive. I recently had to get my screen replaced, and it was like $400. But what is this thing? We regard it as special. We act like we're going to lose our mind if we leave these things at home. We give special meaning to it. We give it importance in our life. That means we regard it as sacred. Everything else, just common things that don't involve the supernatural or don't have that specialness to them, are the non-sacred parts of life, and those are called profane. So pizza, which some people may consider pizza sacred, it's all about, your own perspective, but just the common things in life, those are considered profane. So now let's talk a little bit about the different types of religion, okay? More just words. So here, let's talk a little bit about the structure and different terms. So this is how different categories or groups that religion can be break down to. So there's something called ecclesia. This is where you have a state religion headed by religious leaders. So you might think of the Middle East, Israel, Jerusalem, where they adhere to a particular religion, and the state mandates that people follow that religion. That is what ecclesia is called. I had a friend that was a storyteller, and she would travel all across the Middle East, places where religious artifacts like the Christian Bible were considered contraband and were not allowed. So she was teaching people how to remember and tell stories to be able to share the gospel. That's what we're talking about, is when we talk about these different types of governments, that they adhere to a certain religion and they're led by religious leaders, or religious leaders have a lot of influence. Here in the United States, we don't have that because we believe in the separation between church and state, which means that we don't think that our political leaders, our government should tell us what religion we should adhere to. We have that freedom of choice. There's a terminology called the denomination. Now, this is a little bit different than the denomination you might commonly know. A denomination is a religious organization that most members of society accept as legitimate. So when we're talking about Christianity, being Jewish, being Islamic or Muslim, most people recognize those as legitimate religions. We can go down a term, and cult would not be considered a denomination because people typically don't think of them as being legitimate. So what is a cult? Which I am very fascinated with cults. It's when there's characteristics of an organization. It may be Christian based, but they don't exist within existing religious traditions. And the other terminology that is important is a sect. It's when members of an existing religious organization break away from another group. So back hundreds of years ago, when Protestants separated from the Catholic Church, the Protestants would be considered a sect. Did you know that Mennonites were the original denomination or group? And the Amish didn't think that the Mennonites were being strict enough with their practices, so they broke away. They were what's considered a sect. So there is this term that's overarching that we're going to talk a lot about, and it's called religiosity. It's the ways that people express their religious interests and convictions. And we're going to break that down in just a minute, but we're going to take a pause and start a new video.